Anthology on the bad, short-lived, and forgotten shows and events in TV history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Episode 546, submission number 435, All-American Ultra Quiz. All-American Ultra Quiz aired on the National Broadcasting Company November 10th and 17th, 1981, for a total of 2 episodes. The Amazing Race has been a TV staple since its premiere in 2001. Beast Games has been one of the biggest draws on Prime Video since its premiere last year. But what if I told you that the Japanese had us beat by at least 20 years? Nippon TV premiered the Transamerica Ultra Quiz in 1977, and it proved to be a big hit, only being canceled when the host quit 15 years later. The show saw a large group of Japanese contestants travel to Tokyo all over the globe to the finish line, with the winners getting prize money and an all-expenses-paid trip to New York City.
New York City?
New York City!
It was billed as the biggest game show ever to come out of Japan at the time, and in 1981, the question was asked, could it work elsewhere? NBC, 20th Century Fox, and Dick Clark Productions, under the tutelage of director Bill Carruthers, were willing to find out. The premise could be best described by its TV Guide ad put out the week of November 10th, 1981. Japan's biggest hit comes to America, the first annual All-American Ultra Quiz. 3 zillion screaming Japanese can't be wrong. It's the biggest show in the world, and it takes place all over the world. 1,000 contestants in LA are cut down to 10 finalists in London, 4 super finalists in Athens, and 2 ultra finalists going for the $100,000 prize, winner take all, live in Burbank. For the losers, shame, humiliation, degradation, or worse. With your hosts, Rowan and Martin.
I've got 2 ads, actually, one for each of the 2 shows. For the premiere episode, the ad says, what's the greatest Japanese import that ever took America by storm? A car? A camera? A plate of raw fish? No! It's the all-American version of the most popular show on Japanese television, the first annual All-American Ultra Quiz. And it's got some cartoons here which sort of show what's going on. There's an image of Japanese people and it says 3 zillion screaming Japanese can't be wrong. It does say zillion. A little bit of hyperbole there. It's the biggest show in the world and it takes place all over the world. 1,000 contestants in LA are cut down to 10 finalists in London, 4 super finalists in Athens, and 2 ultra finalists going for the $100,000 prize, winner take all, live in Burbank. For the losers, shame, humiliation, degradation, or worse. With hosts Rowan and Martin. That's for the first episode. For the second episode, the ad is very similar with little cartoons, images. It says the same thing about what's the greatest Japanese import that ever took America by storm, so we can skip all that. But the images, in Paris, 8 contestants visit the guillotine, 6 come back. Ooh. In Rome, 6 survivors are sent to the catacombs, 4 are sent out. In Athens, the birthplace of mathematics, 2 more get subtracted. Live from Burbank, see who wins the $100,000 Ultra Prize. So at least we know where some of the locations they go are. Paris, Rome, Athens, Burbank. When they say contestants visit the guillotine, of course, that's not really happening. How are they removed? I don't know. Unfortunately, a lot of this is speculation because there is no video of this show. There's a promo, but promos can only do so much.
1,000 people start, one finishes. It's sort of like Beast Game, only not as icky. It's sort of like Squid Game, only not as murdery.
So it's Beast Game with trivia. Well, I mean, Beast Game did have a little bit of trivia, but that was only a small portion of Beast Games. And actually, I have some other details about this show. The number of contestants, it said 1,000, but I've got 932. So almost 1,000. And it started in Dodger Stadium. And I've seen video of the Japanese version of Ultra Quiz, so I have an idea as to how it plays. The way they whittle it down is they ask binary questions, yes or no, or true or false, something like that, or do you choose choice A or do you choose choice B? And the people who pick the right answer, they move on. Everybody who missed it, eliminated. They did that at Dodger Stadium, and they went down to 84 survivors. Doesn't say how many questions they played, but they whittled that 932 down to 84. Then those 84 people went from LAX to play one more game to decide who's going to board a plane and fly around the world going to 6 different cities. And I remember seeing this on, again, some sort of show. It may have been possibly like a That's Incredible Real People show. It might have been some other Japanese game show retrospective. I don't remember where I saw it, but they would actually have almost like metal detectors where they ask people, what's the answer to this question? And if they are correct, they board the plane. But if they're incorrect, they leave the concourse. The plane then went to 6 different cities. I mentioned 3 of them earlier, and I think Chico mentioned a 4th. It went to Little Rock, Arkansas, an interesting choice to say the least. Then Washington, D.C., London, Paris, Rome, Athens. They competed in different games, trivia-based games, presumably, until you got down to those 2 finalists. I mentioned the 8 people in Paris got whittled down to 6, and the 6 that went to Rome got whittled down to 4, and then the ones that got to Athens, that 4 went down to 2. Those 2 then returned back to Los Angeles to Burbank, as I mentioned earlier, to compete live for the $100,000. We do have a name for who won this. Craig Powers from La Cañada, Flint Ridge, California, was the champion. He won the $100,000.
I have details about that. Powers beat out Mark Shibuya, a 27-year-old doctoral student in pathology at the University of Southern California, in the live final. Powers said after he won the 100,000, I am in a state of shock. I'm absolutely unbelievable. He was ruffling around, presumably for a dented dime he found at LAX, and he said, I think I'll have this bronzed. Rowan Martin were not just doing this all by themselves. They had an announcer, John Harlan, one of the best in the business. And then they had 2 assistants. The first one was Jane Kennedy, actress, model, sportscaster, the first African-American woman to win Miss Ohio USA in 1970.
Let's stop pretending that we haven't talked about her in the past, because we talked about her a couple of times, because she was on, I believe, 3 weeks of Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. But also, as I've said every time we talk about her, she is from where I live right now. She is from beautiful Wickliffe, Ohio. And also, we talked about her on the You Are Looking Live retrospective about the NFL Today, which aired before the Super Bowl last year.
And the second assistant, Richard Simmons.
Yes, Richard Simmons. You know what? When you brought it up, the first thing that popped in my head was, do you remember the robotic Richard Simmons from The Simpsons?
Yes, I do.
Mike, do you remember the robotic Richard Simmons?
It rings a bell. I can't put my finger on it, to be honest. Well, the thing is, when I first heard Richard Simmons' name, I thought, hey, that's pretty good casting because Richard Simmons, right about this time, maybe a little bit after this, he had his own talk show. And he was a big guest on other talk shows at this time because he was like the big fitness guru in the early 80s. It actually says that the Richard Simmons show was from 82 to 83. I thought his show was a little bit earlier, but maybe I'm confusing his talk show with John Davidson's talk show. Maybe Ultra Quiz somehow led to this, or maybe Richard Simmons' appearances on other talk shows led to the Richard Simmons show? Who knows?
Mike, what'd you say in addition to Richard Simmons? Who did you say also?
I think I said Arlene Mandrell and Mandrell sisters.
No, 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 no. You said something else. You said John Davidson?
John Davidson! There, I said it.
Good. Now you sound like the one who sounds like you're about to take a dump, but not me.
Mike did the really quick version. Show began with 932 at Dodger Stadium asking binary questions, with 84 moving on to round 2 at LAX, where they're paired off and they played a game of rock, paper, scissors. The winner gets asked the question, true, false. If they're right, they got on the plane to Washington. If they're wrong, game over. Before they get to Washington, there's a layover in Little Rock, because while they're on the plane, they're taking another quiz, and the 12 highest scorers in that quiz get back on the plane to go to Washington. Everybody else goes back to Los Angeles on a derelict bus.
Oh, that's horrible.
We're in Washington. 8 contestants advance. The other 4 fly home when they got to Dulles Airport, that is, about 50 miles from where they were, and nobody had any money. The first one to make it would get to fly first class, but the person who got there first traded the ticket in for a coach ticket so the 4 of them could fly together, which is nice. We have 10 contestants flying to London, whittled down to 8 finalists who flew to Paris, 6 super finalists that fly to Rome, 4 that flew to Athens, and the 2 ultra finalists, Mark Shibuya and Craig Powers, flying back to Burbank to compete on live television for $100,000 cash and a bonus prize of their choosing worth up to $15,000. And it was winner take all. Second place is first loser.
It's very much like Beast Games. Well, in the sense that the second place person, they won stuff along the way. That's just how Beast Games worked. But still, there was no consolation prize of, hey, you were second place. We're going to give you $500,000 or $200,000. No, she got nothing on top of the 100, 140,000, 180,000, whatever she had won up until that point. And actually, I should add that the Japanese version, since I've referred to seeing some video over the years, the finals, at least for 1 year, were held at the top of, I believe, the World Trade Center. I wanted to say the Empire State Building, but that doesn't really have a flat top. The World Trade Center back in the 70s, 80s, 90s had a flat surface where you could have two contestants and a camera crew up there, albeit at whatever height it was, 1,300 feet, 1,400 feet. Nope, I'm out. I'll give up my $100,000. I'm not going on the roof of the World Trade Center. Send me home, humiliate me, do whatever you need to do. I have the schedule for what it went up against those 2 weeks, and I actually do have ratings for the first episode. The All American Ultra Quiz aired on Tuesday, November 10th of 1981, as was said earlier. On CBS, it went up in week one against the second and third half hours of the movie 10. But on ABC, this is a little bit tougher competition. I don't think you're beating Three's Company at 9, and I'm pretty sure you're not beating Too Close for Comfort at 9:30. The competition was the same for week 2 on ABC, but on CBS there was a special called Skokie. It was a 2.5-hour special, and this aired between hour 1 and hour 2, 9 to 10 p.m. Were people watching this, though? I do have ratings for the first episode. Out of 72 shows, would anybody like to guess where it finished?
72 shows, you said?
72.
42.
Greg?
69th.
Greg, you don't know how close you are. It finished tied for last, tied for 71st, with something called Fits and Bones.
Fits and Bones.
Or maybe it's 73 shows, and it was in a three-way tie with something called Fits and something called Bones.
I know what Fits and Bones is. Fits and Bones was a dramatic vehicle for the Smothers Brothers.
Oh my gosh, that sounds as bad as you make it sound. A dramatic show with the Smothers Brothers. Okay, I'm looking this up right now because I need to see A, how long it lasted, but also B, just how absolutely bad this is. 4 episodes. Yikes. One of the brothers played an investigative reporter named Ryan Fitzpatrick, not Fitzmagic. That'd be great, though, if Ryan Fitzpatrick, the football player, actually starred in this in 1981. That was Dick Smothers. And then Tommy Smothers, he played Bones Howard, who is his quirky cameraman. And oh my gosh, I'm just looking at the cast. You guys aren't going to believe who played Terry Seymour on this show. Based on what I can see, she may have been like a co-worker. I don't think she was any sort of relation to either of the Smothers brothers. But playing Terry Seymour on this show, Diana Muldaur.
Oh. Years before she would go down that elevator shaft and make this noise.
And also something about Danny Wells.
No, Danny Wells went down the elevator shaft. 4th time in 3 weeks we've made a reference to Danny Wells falling down the elevator shaft. I don't get the madness, but whatever. Regardless, tied for absolute last, 71st. Well, I said 72 shows, but yeah, there's 72 shows there because Ultra Quiz and Fits and Bones tied for the absolute bottom. Yikes.
All I can say is, and judging from that doesn't give me much hope for episode 2, even though I don't think numbers are available for that.
If I had them, I would have shared them.
I'm looking at shows like The Amazing Race and Beast Games and Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, 1981, All-American Ultra Quiz. It is a show like its predecessor show, the Transamerica Ultra Quiz. It has no set. All it has is a game setup, and they set it up wherever they are. And they do all of these zany sort of interstitials. I honestly think that it was a game that was way before its time because you see the advent of reality television over the last 25 years, not too dissimilar from what is described on this show. With numbers like that first number, they did build this as the first annual All American Ultra Quiz. Suffice it to say, NBC, Dick Clark Productions, and 20th Century Fox Television were not keen on holding a second. But you know who would be?
Who?
TBS Television in the UK. Because they also did a version of Ultra Quiz, fronted by David Frost of all people, and it lasted for like 3 years. One episode, and you'll really enjoy this, took place at Universal Studios Hollywood with David Frost inside of Kit.
Oh, that's awesome. Mike, isn't that amazing? David Frost was inside of Kit.
Knight Rider was world famous at that time. It's not terribly surprising.
Wouldn't it be more amazing if, like, William Daniels did the voice of Kit and it was talking to David Frost?
He did.
I was going to take it a step further and say, what if William Daniels asked the questions as Kit?
This is something that was never tried in the US, but give it a couple of decades, you'll have whole game shows taking place somewhere out there. They're not shiny floor game shows, mind you. But at the same time, this show started it all. I wish I could say there was more to it than that, but like we said, details are all secondhand, and any media, be it stills of that big TWA plane with the banner that says $100,000, winner take all, any media having to do with this show is few and far between. It's a shame, really, because in doing the research, I'm intrigued.
Maybe one day this will surface on the internet.
Maybe Craig Powers is somewhere with a recording of both episodes on a VHS.
I'm still waiting for that copy of Are You a Missing Heir to surface. Do you remember that from the 2020 premiere, that promo for friggin' Hal Linden and Are You a Missing Heir?
I remember that, yes.
Yeah. It's been 5 years. I'm still waiting for it. Come on, fuzzy memories. We know you probably have a copy somewhere in Chicago.
The All American Ultra Quiz wanted to be the most revolutionary, the biggest, most expensive game show ever produced for American television by borrowing heavily from the Japanese. It sought out to be perhaps the greatest thing since sushi to come from the land of the rising sun. But in November of 1981, opposite some stiff competition, the All-American Ultra Quiz was just a really big, really elaborate, really expensive thing on TV.
You can find us at our website, itwasathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time.
Well, the next episode, guys, is going to be the upcoming birthday of a legend in television. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
Oh, he's definitely a legend. I don't know of any other way to phrase his popularity and his longevity. He is a superstar, even nowadays. And he's, what, 94?
Yeah. But let's just go back into the 2010s. What if we were like to capitalize on the trends of the day on like a certain platform, and to capitalize, why don't we get this man involved in it as like a dad on this show, inspired by this thing on this website? So this was a thing on TV about a thing on a website.
Oh, and the kids love the internet, so they're going to watch this, right?
Yeah, sure. But we'll find out more about that next time, right here on It Was a Thing on TV. Thank you for listening. For myself, for Mike, and for Chico, we'll see you back here with the first of 2 episodes next week. Wow!
It starts with 1,000 people who fly around the world with the best in hotels, food, and travel arrangements. And as long as you're a winner, you continue on. But when you lose, you lose. And we send you home first class. It's the first All-American Ultra Quiz, November 10th.